Good morning, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. It's Monday, March 3rd, 2025, and this is your AM update.
I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
The fallout from a shocking Oval Office meeting between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Trump, which torpedoed the financial agreement set to be signed Friday. What part did the Democrats play in swaying Mr. Zelensky, and will European leaders be able to salvage the deal?
It may be like a special computer that only a handful of people can access. But then if none of those people tell Cash where the computer is, how's he going to find it?
Elon Musk pulls back the curtain on the inner workings of the Trump administration in a lengthy conversation on Joe Rogan's podcast. And disgraced former Governor Andrew Cuomo makes it official. He's running for New York City Mayor. All that and more coming up in just a moment on your AM Update. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. And with April 15th fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. If you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. And let's face it, it's stressful. Get this handled. April 15th could mark another tax year that has passed you by. So the smart thing to do is to get ahead of it right now. But listen, never contact the IRS alone. That's crazy talk. Don't do that. Instead, you could let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Well, not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, so they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. That can be very useful to you. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor. Whether you owe 10 grand or 10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Speak with one of their strategists today for free. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. tnusa.com/Megyn. April 15th is just around the corner. You act now. Get it off your plate before the IRS acts first. European leaders scrambled to repair the Ukrainian peace deal in the wake of a disastrous Oval Office meeting between President Trump and President Zelensky. Friday's 49-minute meeting began on a positive note, Mr. Trump praising the Ukrainians for surviving against the Russians despite all odds.
Your soldiers have been unbelievably brave. We've given them great equipment, but somebody has to use the equipment. They've been unbelievably brave. This was supposed to be over very quickly. And here we are 3 years later. So I give tremendous credit to your generals and your soldiers and yourself.
Mr. Zelensky then taking the opportunity to plead his case in front of the American press.
Can President Trump, I hope yes, with some other allies to stop Putin, withdraw these enemies, our enemy, withdraw these troops from our land? We will never accept just ceasefire. It will not work without security guarantees. Security guarantees, maybe President is right about this document and other, but this document is not enough.
Mr. Trump repeatedly attempted to bring the focus of the conversation back to peace talks. Vice President J.D. Vance chiming in with a point about diplomacy, how the U.S. is changing course from isolating the Russians to engaging with them. The meeting seemed to hit a significant turning point when Mr. Zelensky, who had been sighing and shaking his head repeatedly, addressed the vice president with this.
What kind of diplomacy, J.D., you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
All bets were off. Mr. Trump and Mr. Vance fired back at the Ukrainian leader, informing him of the stark reality of his position. Mr. Trump saying, "You don't have any cards, and you're gambling with World War III." Shortly after the cameras exited the room, the Ukrainian delegation exited the building with a message from Team Trump, "Come back when you're ready for peace." Democrats roundly criticizing President Trump for the outcome. The Sunday show's full of Dems laying blame for the collapse of the deal on President Trump.
The only winner in that exchange is Putin.
Millions of Americans are embarrassed, are ashamed that you have a president of the United States who says that Ukraine started the war.
It is absolutely shameful what is happening right now. The White House has become an arm of the Kremlin. And the entire pretext for that meeting yesterday was an attempt to rewrite history in order to sign a deal with Putin that hands Putin Ukraine.
That last voice was Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat. And here's some crucial context. Prior to President Zelensky's meeting at the White House, he met with a bipartisan group of senators, including Mr. Murphy. The New York Post reporting Democratic senators advised Mr. Zelensky not to take the deal. Posting on X, Senator Murphy writing, quote, "Just finished a meeting with President Zelensky here in Washington. He confirmed that the Ukrainian people will not support a fake peace agreement where Putin gets everything he wants and there are no security arrangements for Ukraine." Secretary of State Marco Rubio joining ABC This Week, countering Democrat criticism, saying talks of security guarantees with the Russians are premature.
Ultimately, like any truce, like any peace agreement anywhere in the world, those things will have to be enforced, they'll have to be enduring, there'll have to be safeguards put in place. Everybody understands that. But it begins with the first step, and that is engaging them to see if it's even possible. Right now, there is no negotiation. Shouldn't we at least try to see if there is a way to end this war in a way that's acceptable to both sides and is enduring and sustainable?
Journalist Mark Halperin teaming up with the pollster Wick, asking a group of 1,000 Americans who watched the exchange if they side more with the Trump administration's approach to diplomacy or Mr. Zelensky's. 49% say the Trump team has it right, just 37% siding with Mr. Zelensky. Immediately following the meeting, international leaders taking to social media in support of the Ukrainian president. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau writing on X, "Canada will continue to stand with Ukraine." The EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas writing on X, "Ukraine is Europe. We stand by Ukraine." Behind the scenes, European leaders worked to convince Mr. Zelensky to return to the table and sign the economic agreement. The United Kingdom's ambassador to the U.S., Lord Peter Mandelson, appearing on ABC This Week.
We need a very radical reset, and the reset has to consist of the United States and Ukraine getting back on the same page, and President Zelensky giving his unequivocal backing to the initiative that President Trump is taking to end the war and to bring a just and lasting peace to Ukraine.
President Zelensky arrived in the UK on Saturday, convening with European and Canadian leaders on next steps for his country. Mr. Zelensky writing on Telegram, quote, "We are all working together in Europe in order to find a basis for cooperation with America for a true peace and guaranteed security. The UK and France attempting to repair the damage by preparing a peace deal to present to the United States. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announcing plans for European security guarantees yesterday."
We will go further to develop a coalition of the willing to defend a deal in Ukraine and to guarantee the peace. The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air, together with others. Europe must do the heavy lifting. But to support peace in our continent and to succeed, this effort must have strong US backing.
It is unclear yet if President Zelensky can be swayed to accept European security guarantees without U.S. security guarantees as well, which Mr. Trump has maintained will be in the form of economic investment only. And now even that's unclear. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told CBS Mr. Zelensky's actions in the Oval threw off the intended sequence of events. First, the economic deal with Ukraine, then a peace deal with Russia.
Is the deal still on the table, or has President Trump instructed you to drop the project?
Margaret, it is impossible to have an economic deal without a peace deal. The sine qua non for an economic deal is that Ukrainian leadership wants a peace deal.
Sine qua non, Latin for the essential component. The Trump administration is not convinced at the moment that Mr. Zelensky actually wants peace, and without that, they cannot do business. Mr. Bessent telling CBS at the moment there is no economic deal on the table. Mr. Zelensky told the BBC now he would like to do the minerals deal, but Mr. Trump has not agreed to put it back on the table after what happened on Friday. Coming up, Elon Musk pulls back the curtain on DOGE findings, and disgraced New York Governor Andrew Cuomo makes his New York City mayoral campaign official. Are rising costs or scaling challenges holding you back? Are you having trouble taking your business to the next level? Financial Yield Solutions, Inc., or FYSI, provides tailored solutions for businesses generating $1 million to $10 million annually. From tax planning, advertising, and retirement strategies to scaling operations, FYSI will help businesses thrive. For those considering selling their business, FYSI guides them through a winning exit strategy with confidence. With $500 billion raised for AI technology under the Trump administration, businesses cannot afford to be left behind. FYSI can even help you explore AI integration to lower costs, enhance efficiency, and increase profits in today's rapidly evolving tech climate. With over 14 years of experience, FYSI specializes in addressing the exact challenges business owners face. Book your free business review today to transform your operations, grow your profits, and secure your future. Visit FYSI.com/Megyn or call 1-800-877-4000. Success starts with FYSI. Elon Musk joining Joe Rogan over the weekend for a 3-hour conversation diving into Mr. Musk's work at the White House. The official DOGE website touts $65 billion in savings via canceled contracts, fraud detection, regulatory savings, and more. Recently, the Trump administration announced the cancellation of 90% of USAID's contracts. These contracts are typically with NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that receive the money in the form of grants. President Trump recently highlighting what some of these organizations were up to.
$19 million for biodiversity conservation in Nepal, $1.5 million for voter confidence. We want to give them confidence. In Liberia, $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, $2.5 million for inclusive democracies in South Africa.
Elon Musk calls the system a scam, quote, maybe the biggest scam ever.
Small decisions result in multi-billion-dollar outcomes. So we saw one person was getting $1.9 billion sent to their NGO, which basically got formed about a year ago and had no prior, no prior activity. Basically, the government-funded NGOs are a way to do things that would be illegal if they were the government, but are somehow made legal if it's sent to a so-called nonprofit.
The Trump administration's cuts to USAID total about $60 billion. Elon Musk providing clarity to DOGE discoveries on Social Security fraud.
I mean, we found, just with a basic search of the Social Security database, that there were 20 million dead people marked as alive. What it looks like is that most of the fraud is not coming from Social Security payments directly, but because they're marked as alive in the Social Security database, that they can then get disability, unemployment, sort of fake medical payments, and other things.
Mr. Musk describes the government payment systems as a whole series of big, dumb machines, saying the system is ripe for exploiting because across the government, these systems don't talk to each other, making fraud easy.
Like it's mostly not corruption; it's mostly just waste and I don't know, incompetence. By the way, a bunch of the things that DOGE is fixing were identified by the Government Accountability Office many years ago. So we're like doing tech support. We're like fixing stuff that is, just broken.
The GAO, or Government Accountability Office, estimates the feds lose between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud. Elon Musk, a U.S. citizen since 2002 and longtime Democrat supporter, explaining how the Democrat policy of open borders pushed him into the Trump camp.
They're importing voters, and it's really just a matter of time. It is an attempt to destroy democracy in America. If you take the sort of 7 swing states, like often the margin of victory there is like maybe 20,000 votes. If you put 200,000 illegals in there, and they have like a 80% likelihood of voting Dem, and it's only a matter of time before they become citizens, then those swing states will not be swing states in the future. And if they are not swing states, we'll be a permanent one-party state country. Permanent, deep blue socialist state.
Elon Musk weighing in on the Epstein files flop late last week. Originally, Attorney General Pam Bondi promised to release all of the Epstein files, ultimately, though, only posting documents that were largely previously known to the public. Mr. Musk defending the disappointing drop, saying AG Bondi and Kash Patel of the FBI just arrived in office and are captains to a ship with a crew that hates them. AG Bondi revealed last week a whistleblower report indicating thousands of pages of Epstein files may be hidden in a New York field office. Mr. Musk describing why retrieving the files may not be so cut and dry.
They're not going to enable it such that anyone at the FBI could access it. So there's probably very few people. So then it's not going to be, it may be like a special computer that only a handful of people can access. But then if none of those people tell Kash where the computer is, how's he going to find it?
AG Bondi set the deadline to return all of the files at 8 a.m. this past Friday. There has been no indication any of the documents were actually received by her office. Disgraced former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announces he is running for New York City Mayor in a 17-and-a-half-minute video.
We know that the first step towards solving a problem is having the strength, having the courage to recognize it. And we know that today our New York City is in trouble.
The former governor describing a relatively moderate platform, increasing cops, getting mentally ill homeless people off the streets, and not tolerating pro-Hamas protests that harass and intimidate the Jewish community. Of course, when he was in office, he governed as a leftist, banning fracking, stopping nuclear power, and going soft on crime. Mr. Cuomo also acknowledging his past scandals.
Did I always do everything right in my years of government service? Of course not. Would I do some things differently, knowing what I know now? Certainly. Did I make mistakes? Some painfully? Definitely. And I believe I learned from them, and that I am a better person for it.
Mr. Cuomo resigned from the governorship in August 2021 following a report from New York Attorney General Letitia James stating Mr. Cuomo sexually harassed 11 women and created a hostile work environment as governor. AG James writing, quote, "The executive chamber's culture, one filled with fear and intimidation, while at the same time normalizing the governor's frequent flirtations and gender-based comments, contributed to the conditions that allowed the sexual harassment to occur and persist." Democrat establishment quickly revoked support for Mr. Cuomo. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi at the time called for him to step down, as well as New York Senator Chuck Schumer. As he fell from power, Mr. Cuomo blamed his Italian heritage and claimed he didn't realize the extent to which the line, as in the line for what kind of conduct is appropriate at work, had been redrawn over time. Early on in the pandemic, Mr. Cuomo was lauded by the media for his handling of the COVID crisis, even winning an Emmy for his daily briefings. That Emmy was ultimately stripped amid his sexual harassment allegations. His approval rating so high, many wondered if he would eventually run for president. Ultimately, that approval also collapsed. Mr. Cuomo's biggest scandal was his March 2020 order forcing nursing homes to accept COVID-positive patients, which he was warned would cost lives. It created a political firestorm when it was discovered that his office then underreported nursing home deaths by as much as 50%. More than 8,000 nursing home patients in New York died of COVID. The mayoral primary is in June. Mr. Cuomo will be running against current mayor Eric Adams and several other lower-profile candidates. And that'll do it for your AM Update. I'm Megyn Kelly. Join me back here today for the Megyn Kelly Show, live on SiriusXM Triumph Channel 111 at noon East, on youtube.com/Megyn Kelly, and on all podcast platforms.